Ken, again, thank you so much for spending time with us here tonight and talking about everything you do with and without MUFON.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an honor, and I'm glad I have the stage here to speak about what's going on and some of the feelings I have about the UFOs and MUFON and everything else.
Well, and that's what it's all about. I mean, I would rather. I don't believe in doing canned shows. I don't believe in doing preempted or pre-done questions and stuff. You sent me some talking points, and I'd like to get to some of those because they're attached to the photos that you've sent me. One thing you did with your talking points, just a little bit. You're a Desert Storm veteran and a pilot, and why don't you, if you don't mind, talk about that a little bit, and then. What the first satellite that was launched in 1957 was Sputnik, and I believe, did we just come up on an anniversary of that launch, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it was in October of '57. Yeah, well, my father's an old Navy man. As a matter of fact, my father, well, he's a World War II veteran of Okinawa, Iwo Jima. He was on the aircraft carrier Bennington. And some of his planes from the Bennington, they sunk the Yamato, the largest battleship in the Japanese Navy at the time. But now he's a Navy man. He's always been interested in flying himself, and he's always been taking me to the airports. And when I was young, and like I said, we stood on our front. Me and my mother and my father, we stood there on the front lawn and watched. Sputnik flyover, and that's something I'll never forget in '57. So that kind of got me interested in looking into the sky, and I eventually wanted to become a private pilot, which I did. I wasn't a pilot for the Air Force. I wish I could have been, but I didn't go to the Air Force Academy or anything like that. But no, I was in the joined the Air Force Reserves, for a little bit of excitement, and 9 months later we get activated for Desert Storm. So. Basically what my job was. I worked for the commander. I was in the they called it SEQC. What our job was is we had to evaluate all the different sections in the squadron just to make sure that they were doing things as per Air Force regulations, and we offered suggestions and things to help their section. So I worked for the commander for 9 years. But my basic sort of job in the Air Force was they called me a pallet pusher. We would load the C-141s, the C-5 Galaxies, and even the new C-17s. We loaded out of McGuire Air Force Base. So, and I was also at Dover Air Force Base for 2 years. So that was my military. Now they kept us. They didn't send us over. As a matter of fact, they asked for volunteers, and I would say that 3/4 of the squadron wanted to go over. They wanted to go to Kuwait and be in the middle of it all, but they decided to keep us all at McGuire Air Force Base for 8 months. And of course, what we did is we were sending the supplies over to our troops in Iraq and Kuwait there. So that's what we did.
Well, very interesting, very interesting. And again, thank you for your service. People don't thank people in the military enough for what they do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my son, as a matter of fact, he was at Warren Air Force Base. He joined the Air Force, and he joined the military police, and he was at Warren Air Force Base there in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and we traveled out there quite a few times to see him, and we also got some dynamite UFO photos during the there's something called Frontier Days out there in Cheyenne, Wyoming once a year, and of course they have the Air Force Thunderbirds they perform, and then I got some dynamite UFO photos flying with the F-16 Thunderbirds out there in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And my son, he was a missile cop, I guess you can say. His job was to 3 states there surrounding Wyoming. Their job was to go out to the missile silos and just to check things out if there was something wrong going on there. So. And he had a few stories himself of some strange things that they've seen out there. But no, well, what they did is since my son had weapons training, he was in the Air Force. The Army sent him to Mosul. He was a 50 cal gunner on convoys, during the invasion of Baghdad and all that. So he saw quite a lot of action there on the convoys, and thank God he's home now, and he's out of the Air Force. So I could thank God for that. So.
Wow, sounds interesting. Yeah, things are getting a little crazy over there right now, and these Russians are getting pretty aggressive.
Yeah, I really can't blame the Russians for doing something. We're getting so close to their territory over there. That would be like the Russians doing the same thing we're doing down in Mexico.
Right.
I'm kind of surprised the Russians haven't gotten involved a long time ago. But the only problem with that is, that's all you need is just one mishap, and one thing turns into something else, and then here we go with World War III. So,
right, exactly.
It's some serious stuff going on over there right now.
Another thing you posted, sent to me, was about a close encounter near Area 51 back in 2006. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. My wife and I, we went out to the Luxor in Vegas there for 7 days and stayed at the Luxor and had a good time. It was our 30th wedding anniversary, and we got remarried at the Needle there. The what's that? What they call it?
The Sky Needle?
The Space Needle there, whatever they call it.
Right.
We got married there, and then we had a couple of days left. So I said, I had all intentions of going out to Area 51. So I got out the maps and had a pretty good idea as to where it was, and it really wasn't that far from Vegas, about an hour and a half's ride, I guess. So we ventured out, and we found the Little Alien. That's a little tourist trap you've seen on TV 1,000 times. Rachel, Nevada. So we found that place and got something to eat, and was talking to the owner, and I says, I said, I'm pretty sure the back gates of Area 50 around. Area 51 is around here somewhere, and she says, yeah, it's a quarter mile down the road. So we jumped in the car and headed out. I didn't want to go to the front gates because with my wife being there, I heard that sometimes they hassle you, and I didn't want to, get her involved. Quite frankly, I was kind of surprised she wanted to come in the first place, which she did. And so we found the road there, right down the street from right down the highway, I should say, from the Little Alien. And we turned onto this graveled road. It was a very wide road. It seemed to be well maintained. I'm assuming there was probably a lot of truck traffic and buses and whatever they use on this road. So it's 10 miles from the extraterrestrial highway to the back gates of Area 51. So it's all flat land. The only thing you really see is mountains in the distance. So we headed on out. And we're about 5 miles into our little adventure there, and then all of a sudden, it was an ear-shattering, very high-pitched, wavering noise. And I would say it lasted a good 2 or 3 seconds. And first thing we did is we dove down in the seats. I could have dove on the floor if there was more room. And, we stayed there for a few minutes and wondering what the hell was that, and, what's outside of our car here. So we started to peek outside the car, and there was nothing there. I get out of the car and I'm saying, what the hell was that? There were some F-16s flying over, I would say 2,000 or 3,000 feet, but that was not at that time. But periodically you would see an F-16 flying around.
Right.
But I have no idea what that could have been. It was the weirdest thing that I've ever experienced. And we got in the car, and I says, well, we're halfway there, so let's at least go to the back gates, which we finally made it to the back gates of Area 51. And there was really, I couldn't see it. I know there was people in the guardhouse there, which was beyond the fence. It was, I would say, about 50 yards beyond where the fence was, where you couldn't go through. And of course, we took pictures of all the signs that said "Don't take pictures," just to prove I was there, I guess. But that was our experience, and to this day, I don't have a clue as to what happened.
Yeah, strange stuff, huh?
Yeah, there was no missing time or anything, so thank God for that. But something hit our car, and to this day, I have no idea what it was.
Wow. Well, at least they didn't come and get you.
Yeah. They may have come and got my wife, but not me.
But they didn't get you. Yeah, it's interesting because being here, we're in such a hot spot, if you will. You know, we've got just to the west of us here, we've got Dugway Proving Grounds.
Yeah.
You know, area. I mean, and from what I've heard, just in general, they say more goes on there than there is. You know, that's kind of the like Wright-Patterson. Those are maybe more of the real Area 51s, but every now and then we see some crazy stuff out over the western skies, and then of course we've got Skinwalker Ranch down in central Utah in the Uinta Basin. A lot of activity down there lately. People have been reporting just tons and tons of activity at Skinwalker again. So a lot of things happening, a lot of things flying around.
Yeah, I got a great article on Dugway's testing sites there. It's something about over 6,000 sheep died in Skull Valley. As a matter of fact, I put this article on my website, worldufophotosannews.org, and you know, I can. It's just pretty incredible what happened down there. I have a whole article on it.
Really? Now, is that on your website?
Yeah. So I'm looking at it right now, as a matter of fact. I can read it off if you want. It's up to you.
Sure.
Yeah, now it says here, let me see, I posted this April 17, 2014. It says Area 52 in Utah is possibly the new Area 51. So Area 52 in Utah is the new Area 51. In March 1968, 6,249 sheep died in Skull Valley, an area nearly 90 miles from Dugway's testing sites. When examined, the sheep were found to have been poisoned by an organ phosphate chemical. The sickening of the sheep, known as the Dugway sheep incident, coincided with several open-air tests of the nerve agent VX at Dugway. Local attention focused on the Army, which initially denied that VX had caused the death, instead blaming the local use of organ phosphate pesticides on crops. There was conducted on the dead sheep later, definitely identified the presence of VX. The Army never admitted liability, but did pay the ranchers for their losses. On the official record, the claim was for 4,372 disabled sheep, of which about 2,150 were either killed outright by the VX exposure or were so critically injured that they needed to be euthanized on site by veterinarians. Another 1,877 sheep were temporarily injured or showed no signs of injury, but were not marketable due to their potential exposure. All of the exposed sheep that survived the initial exposure were eventually euthanized by the ranchers, since even the potential for exposure had rendered the sheep permanently unsaleable for either meat or wool. The incident coincided with the birth of the environmental movement, and the anti-Vietnam War protests created an uproar in Utah and the international community. The incident also starkly underscored the inherent unpredictability of air dispersal of chemical warfare agents, as well as the extreme lethality of next-generation pesticide nerve agents at even extreme low concentrations. Following the public attention drawn to Area 51 in the early 1990s, ufologists and concerned citizens have suggested that whatever covert operations, if any, may have been underway at that location were subsequently transferred to Dugway Proving Grounds. The Deseret News reported that Dave Rosenfeld, president of Utah UFO Hunters, stated...
Right, Alien Dave.
Yeah. Numerous UFOs have been stored and reported in the area in and around Dugway. Military aircraft can't account for all of the unknowns seen in the area. It might be that our star visitors are keeping an eye on Dugway, too. Dugway is the new Area 51 and probably the new military spaceport. So that was the article that I have. I picked that up off of latestufos.com. So, yeah, I thought that was very interesting and had to write about it.
Yeah, Alien Dave's been doing it for years here in Utah. I mean, that guy. I need to get him on the program one of these days. I've met him a couple of times, and he's one of those guys that's a doer. He's out there doing things. He's out there digging up stuff. He's doing filming constantly. out filming things and going in caves, and him and his group there, they they literally put their life on the lines to get some of these photos. Sometime, Ken, it's amazing.
Is this the first you've heard of this sheep? All these sheep that died in Skull Valley?
Yeah, first I did.
Yeah, no, there's so much information out there. It's almost impossible to keep on top of it all. It really is.
Well, and the thing is, the local media, it's kind of a shame, but the local media, whenever somebody calls the station or takes a picture or a photo or something, and they send it into either Fox or one of the news channels or something out here, it's kind of a shame, because what they end up doing is they end up, the reporters may report on it, but they always schnicker about it,
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that.
And
matter of fact, Larry King had some important people on one day, UFO people. This was years ago, and the show was pretty good. And at the end of the show, he says, "Oh yeah, and next week, we're going to have the Bigfoot and the wrestlers from the WWF is going to be here." And that kind of that ruined the whole show.
Right.
It was just incredible.
Got another caller. You want to take another call?
Yeah, sure.
All right, caller. Good evening. Welcome to Fringe Radio. You're on with Ken Pfeifer.
Hi, Pat. This is Al Roberts calling. I have a question for Ken.
Oh, hey, AR. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah. What question you have?
Well, I was listening to you talking earlier about the Hangar 1 program, and I have a question about that. The producers of that show, I have a very strong feeling that they're not doing their homework a lot. For instance, the Lonnie Zamora case, the Socorro, New Mexico incident.
Oh, well, that was debunked a few months ago, but then again, is that what you're going to say, that it was debunked?
No, I don't. I believe Zamora. I mean, Captain Richard T. Holder, I guess, from White Sands, came over to investigate about 90 minutes after they called.
Yeah.
And he was interviewed on Unsolved Mysteries, and he said, he thought maybe that Zamora had seen the something classified that had gotten away from the range, but then he realized that wasn't the case, and he looked around for clues that it might be a hoax, and everything he saw seemed to back up Zamora's story. So even J. Allen Hynek came back very well impressed with Zamora. But my question is, and the Hangar 1's reproduction of that event, I think they skewed the details a lot. I've got video clips of Zamora in his own words way back, that I recorded back in 94, 95, I guess, somewhere around there. And he said, when he got to the site and he saw this egg-shaped craft on 4 legs, and his radio went dead, which is a common occurrence in a lot of UFO cases. But
sure.
Then he said, I guess he reached for his radio. He called his headquarters, and which is not true, and they depict their visual representation of the event. They show it as a saucer-shaped object that took off and flew right over his head, which he said it rose into the air and it hovered for a few minutes. The flames and the noise that it was making, stopped, and then it just hovered there for a few minutes and then drifted off to the west. It's just you get you're not getting the right perspective of what happened. I mean, the event, the fact that the event occurred, they're producing that. Yes, okay, but it's just these little details that it just seems like the producers didn't do their homework and get all the facts right.
Well, that's you could be right. I mean, I guess a lot has to do with the time restraints that they have for these stories on Hangar 1 and the producers and all the other people involved. It's easier said than done, though, I think, to try to get all the details correct and try to squeeze all the details into a certain time limit, 15 minutes that you have to to reenact a UFO sighting. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't see that. I did not see that episode. There's a few Hangar One that I haven't seen yet. I've been kind of holding off on and watching them, but yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the producers, and quite frankly, I think some of these other UFO shows, especially in the past. There was that one UFO show that kind of started out where there were 3 or 4 of, or there was like 5 people that sit around and what they would try to do is reproduce, a UFO sighting. And if they were able to reproduce the UFO sighting and the photos that were submitted, then they wrote this thing off as explainable, like identified flying object. They wrote it off as a CGI, computer generated images, Photoshop. I couldn't even watch them as shows. I mean, I literally had to turn them off. I'd get so mad watching such a terrible job that they were, they're just supposed to be representing the UFO community and UFOs, and they made a joke out of it.
Yeah, they tend to sensationalize a bit too much, and it's the same with a lot of these shows that are on right now on the History Channel and Destination America Channel, Science Channel. Even,
That's the guy. He has never found what he was looking for. I watch him. I forget his name. As a matter of fact, he just started a new show. You know who I'm talking about. I think he's funny. I watch him because the guy's funny. He cracks me up. But trying to find actually what he's going out to find, he never finds. And it's
you talking about Joshua Gates?
That's the one.
Yeah.
So he's entertaining to me. I don't care where he's going or what he's looking for. The guy cracks me up, so I watch him. But he's done a lot of he's butchered a lot of searches for this and for that. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I don't want to take up your time here. I just wanted to find out about that, some of the facts behind how they make that program, how they produce it.
Yeah, I guess, but it's not if they were trying to get all the facts. I think they kind of do a lot of shortcuts and try to, like yourself and myself, we know all the details about what happened, but 99.9% of the people who are watching the show doesn't have a clue anyway. So I guess that's the way they look at it.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time.
Hey, AR, nice hearing from you, my friend. Got to get you back on again.
Okay, yeah, I'll be in touch with you in a couple of weeks, sir.
Okay, take care. Be good.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
buddy.
Bye-bye. That's A.R. Roberts. He's been on the show a couple of times, Ken. He wrote a book called From Atom to Omega, an anatomy of UFO phenomenon. You got to pick it up.
Great.
He took the Bible and looked at, and that's a big piece of the book, and just took the Bible and took religion and threw everything else out the door and looked at it from a purely objectionable and scientific, technical perspective, and his book is quite interesting.
Yeah, I have to check that out. As a matter of fact, I'm the founder of a Christian organization called HeavensRangers.net. I'm in the process of revamping my website and adding a lot of additional info that I have. And essentially, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lobby to get the Vatican to open up its archives there, and so people can scientists and theologians and whomever can go in there and start researching what they have in their archives. Because I think that would answer a lot of the questions. Oh,
I agree with you. Let's, if we can, and now we're going to use a little bit of show and tell for those that want to check out. I found your pictures just just unbelievable. And of course, in your talking notes here, you talk about your most important MUFON case, the Alloway Turnpike, I believe it is, or Township, New Jersey. That
was Alloway. The Alloway. I sent you 3 photos of that. One photo was a rendering from the witness, and the other photos were the real thing. That was the Alloway case that I investigated a few years ago. Are they the photos you're talking about?
Yeah, if you could set this, and if you go to if people that are listening, if you want to see the photos, they're on our Facebook page. You can get to Facebook through fringeradioshow.com, or you can just go to Fringe Radio Show on Facebook, and I just posted them out there. It's Ken's, it's dated 9/24/07, Alloway Township, New Jersey.
Yeah, the first photo should be, I think it's 1A. It looks like a rendering of a triangle.
Right, and that's the first one I put out.
Okay, yeah, let me just read on here. I'll basically read right from, now this is also on my website, worldUFOPhotosandNews.org, so you can check it out from there. I was interviewed about this whole thing from a viewzone.com, Gary Vay. He interviewed me about this, and I put it on my website. But basically, this was Bridgeton, New Jersey, outside of Bridgeton, New Jersey. And I interviewed, I'm going to call him CS, I don't want to use his name, concerning his recent sighting, and he provided this drawing of the flying triangle that passed over his astronomical observatory on October 13, 2006 at 12:45 a.m. He had an observatory out in the back of his yard there, and he was a amateur astronomer. He had a lot of expensive equipment, and he lived in Clayton, New Jersey, which is right next to me. I live in Franklinville, New Jersey, but Bridgeton, there's a little bit less. That's a little bit further south, down in South Jersey here, and there's a very little light. You can see the stars real well, down in that section of South Jersey. And he was confronted with an enormous object clearly defined by ambient light. I thought it was crashing, but as it approached my observation, it began to rise. The thing was barely moving forward and could have been no more than 200 feet above me, probably less. Now, we consider that a close encounter. I could make out details of rivets and bolts in its construction. As the object around its nose began to approach me, I was really taken back by its brightly lit windows. I was shocked to see a humanoid form moving as if it were pacing back and forth in a large port window about 8 feet square. As it got closer, the figure moved away from the window. The figure is shown in the upper right side of the drawing. I thought there was no one at the controls. I got the impression it was getting ready to hover as its open hatch moved directly above me, and I was entertaining some negative thoughts regarding my own safety. Now, looking at the drawing itself, there's a big black box. Now, he described that big box as, it kind of reminded me of a big dumpster. And the conclusion we came to was that I thought that maybe this craft was looking for either cows or horses, because that whole area is covered with horse farms and cow farms, and very rural in that area of southern Jersey. So, to go on here, it was at least 2 stories high with 2 large windows, port and starboard. It had a rounded nose. There were 3 opaque light-type structures, 2 large turbo-type structures, larger in diameter and shorter in length than those on commercial aircraft. And I mean, this guy's attention to detail was incredible. He was a retired man, a professional man, retired. Him and his wife. He because of the light pollution in Clayton, he decided to move, further south, and he was seriously into this. Going further here, 8 flap or stabilizer type structures aft. A very large square black container-type structure protruding off center from its belly. An open hatch and other bulky geometric shapes that I saw, but I can only remember they were thick, huge, bulky, with an incredible amount of drag, that it could be an aerodynamic possibility. It's almost immediately I felt a surge of static electricity that tingled my face and hair on my arms and head. As its tail section was about to pass over me, I quickly swung the dome and heard a low-pitched roar with the sound of bacon sizzling in a frying pan. Suddenly it was gone. There was no sound, and I did a 360-degree search, but suddenly there was nothing there. So, I interviewed the guy shortly after the sighting. He called us in the MUFON, and I thought this was a very important sighting, of course. And I drove down to his house there. It really wasn't that far from me. And he was physically shaken. He was afraid to go outside to his observatory for a couple months after the encounter. I mean, I had to go down to his house a couple times and talk him off the ledge, basically. It was very strange. And that's that's the triangle rendering that he gave us. But then something strange happened. 11 months after the sighting, the witness CJ had another sighting, but this time he had some great photos to show. So that should be photos. I guess it's 2A and 3A, I believe.
Right. It looks like two light beams interconnected.
He got some. Now that's only two of about a half a dozen photos I have, and these photos are just outstanding. Now this happened in 9/24/07. What's that? 6-7 months later, I guess. Same location. Case number is 8111 through MUFON. And the statement is the night of September 24th, 2007 was brightly lit due to a full moon. It was approximately 11:30 p.m., and I was outside with a digital camera nearby. I had nothing special in mind, but due to the bizarre experience I had last October 2006, I always kept a camera on hand when I'm out at night. And then he says here, a bright light again caught my eye, and I observed this rectangular-shaped light begin to rise slowly behind a tree line in the south, approximately 1 mile away. Now, as a side note here, Salem nuclear plant, I believe it's approximately about 50 miles away. 15 miles away, and Dover Air Force Base is right across the bay from that. So we have Dover Air Force Base and the nuclear plant, which is in relatively a short distance from where this happened. This object appeared to hover for about 20 seconds and then began to travel west at a very slow speed. As it began moving west, it seemed to pivot on both the vertical and horizontal axis, revealing more detail until it disappeared behind a tree line. So basically, this object stopped, and I had a photo presentation of this. I did at a UFO conference in Baltimore a few years ago. This wasn't MUFON associated, but this was another UFO organization I belonged to, and one of the people says, well, maybe it was a plane flying by and with the low exposure and blah, 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 and I says, no. I says, this thing was stopped. And the witness was able to take pictures of this thing as it rotated on its axis. So a bright light again caught my eye, and I observed this rectangular-shaped light begin to rise slowly. The object appeared to hover for 20 seconds, then began traveling west. As it began moving west, it seemed to pivot on both vertical and horizontal axis. I captured the object with my digital, and the pictures came out surprisingly well. I used a Canon 20D-A, which I use for astrophotography. I have transferred these images to a disk. So, like I said, I'm looking at my notes here, and to see it. The Salem nuclear plant is only 13 miles away, and Dover Air Force Base sits about 26 miles away across the Delaware Bay there. So that was just one of the most incredible sightings, one of the top sightings that I investigated right there.
Yeah, unbelievable pictures, the clarity of them. A question that I've got for you, Ken, and I'm sure you've heard this 100 times before, but if their technology, if these are alien craft, if their technology is so good, why do you think they need to have lights and markers? Everybody sees UFOs and they see flashing red lights and stuff. Do you think that's part of a muse so they blend in? I mean, you'd figure with technology they don't need to mark anything.
That's true. No, I think they're even using the red and green lights to blend in. Everybody looks in the sky and it just assumes it's an airplane, and these things are flying around and not really being detected by anyone because they think it's planes in the sky.
And you did mention this, but I just wanted to touch on it again. Now, you mentioned that this gentleman in the triangular craft, he saw a figure in the window. Did it look human? Did he say, or was it too hard to see what it really looked like?
Yeah, I think it was really basically too hard to really get a good view as to what it really looked like. It's just like a human form, I guess, with a head and arms on it. But he didn't elaborate on that. But this craft here, it's the first craft that he saw. Now I could, I could believe that there's a possibility that this is one of ours. This is one of these experimental crafts that are flying around. But I don't give our government that much credit, to be honest with you. As a matter of fact, my wife, she's got a tremendous sighting. As a matter of fact, I'll read her sighting off to you if you don't mind.
Sure, would love to hear it.
Yeah, I have this on my website, and you know, she's believes in UFOs, but you know, she's not into it of course as much as I am. But this was June 4th, 2009, Woodstown, New Jersey. My wife saw a large black triangle with lights on the bottom at the top of the hill on Route 40 just outside of Woodstown going towards Pole Tavern. She said the triangle hovered over a house on the other side of the road. It made no noise, and Kelly watched it for 5 minutes before she decided to get out of there. The object was the size of a softball at arm's length. This is a very, very busy road at night with truck traffic on Route 40. The time was approximately 9 p.m., and she looked out her rolled down window from the driver's side and had a clear view of the triangle. The underside of the triangle was lit with rectangular lights. The lights were bright but not blinding. She could not tell if the middle of the triangle was filled in due to the light. So there's a possibility that what she saw was maybe not a triangle. It could have been a V-shaped type of craft. The sky was crystal clear, and she was coming home from her hairdresser there in Pennsville. And the funny part about it was she told me about it the next day. She when she got home from the hairdresser's, not a word. So I don't know what that was all about, but she told me. I says, well, "What do you mean you saw something last night? How come you didn't tell me about it?" So. Yeah, we've had a couple of sightings in Woodstown. As a matter of fact, we have one of our gentlemen who joined MUFON, an investigator. He had a sighting in April 19, 2009, and essentially about a mile from where my wife had her sighting. I have that here if you want me to read through it.
Sure.
Yeah, it says here, April 17, 2009, Woodstown, New Jersey. I saw a bright light and triangular-shaped object while going turkey hunting on 4/17 at about 5:25 a.m. While traveling west on Route 40, I saw a bright light toward the Woodstown, Yorktown area. It was so low that I thought that I was looking at a plane in trouble, so I made a left off of Route 40 to get a better look at it. At the time, I noticed that the light wasn't moving. I expected the light to move to the left or right, as it might if a plane was in trouble and looking for a place to land, but the light just stayed in one spot. The light was about a mile and a half away, and it was a big, bright light shining, and I was getting closer and closer. I came to a stop sign, and the light was shining into a field on my left, and it was connected to a large triangular object. But as I drove under the object, it made no noise. Something told me to stop and scrutinize this thing, but something else told me to keep going and don't mess with it. I just kept going while looking at it through my truck mirrors and noticed bright flashes. I thought it might be strobes or electrical flashes. As I continued to look through my window, it just disappeared. I didn't realize it at the time, but it had been moving over power lines. So it seems that some of these craft here, especially these triangles, are possibly getting some kind of an energy off of these power lines, and maybe that's why they like these nuclear plants so much. So, that's just one of a couple of sightings at South Jersey here. We've been seeing some triangles down here, that's for sure. As a matter of fact, I saw another sighting I had right down the street from me, a quarter mile away from me. I went to the local pizzeria there to pick up some food and bring it home, and it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I looked up into the sky, and the sky was clear, but I just saw this dark, it looked like a square object, and it had lights on it, and of course this piqued my curiosity, and I made a right turn, and this thing very slowly flew over top of my head there, and I got out of the car. I'm standing outside of the car looking at this thing, and it just very slowly just kept moving to a northerly direction. It looked like it was heading towards the Philadelphia International Airport area, but that was just incredible. I wrote that one up too with MUFON, and I submitted that to World UFO Photos at news.org. So you can find any of these things on my website. I got like 1,500 case files and some really incredible stuff that I don't make the stuff up. I'm just I just get most of my, I get a lot of information from different UFO organizations every day, and I usually post the best one that I could find. I post one a day, and it's been working out real well.
Wow. Well, you sure have enough stuff out there. And again, I went through the site and just started looking around. I mean, you can spend days. There's so much detail tied to stuff. We've got about 7 minutes or so left, Ken. I'd like to talk a little bit about the moon and Mars. And when I first opened up, I mentioned about people that claim that, curiosity is seeing things. Like you mentioned, as far as the moon landings go, the astronauts have come forward. I believe it's Buzz Aldrin actually came right out and said when they sat down, they looked up on the ridge of these mountains, and there were the craft right there with their lights turned on.
Yeah.
And what do you think? What do you think about the moon and Mars? Do you think Do you think they're just crazy shaped rocks, or do you think there's something really there?
No, I think especially the dark side of the moon. I think there's something there, but something that I've been kind of going back and forth with in my own mind here is quite frankly, I think today we have the technology to go to the moon and land on the moon. I think we really do. But back in '69, I don't think we went. I think it's a fake, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. But there's so much evidence. As a matter of fact, on my website, worldufophotos.org, I have a moon gallery section there, and there just seems to be a ton of evidence that says that these guys never went. Kennedy was bragging about going to the moon and by '69 or no, by 1970, and I just don't think we had the technology to do it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I kind of tend to lean your way. I'm really on the fence on it. One thing that I did I can't say I did a lot of research, but I did a lot of digging into my day job. For my day job, I'm an IT guy. I've been a programmer. I've been an IT person for 32 years. And something that I found is that when they did the moon, when the moon launches were happening, especially the first one, there was a lot of simulations that were programmed. And they, I read different articles that said that they were testing these NASA engineers and these NASA techs and the NASA control room operators with simulations that were so real they couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And more of that keeps coming out. How many different scenarios there were, and I don't know. I've read the book NASA Moon America. I found that pretty interesting. There's just a lot of stuff there that kind of makes you think a little bit. I would hope that we were really there, but that's a ginormous feat to do that. And I just, like yourself, I don't know if you agree, I just don't know if we had the technology. I think today we do. But
I think we do.
But I don't know if 50 years ago we did.
I don't think. I really don't. As a matter of fact, people don't realize it, but the Russians had they had one of their unmanned craft land the same day, basically the same time that we supposedly landed on the moon. But the thing that scares me about this moon landing was, as everyone knows, and that this surface was like a powder. It was so fine, and with this rocket coming down and disturbing this fine powder, especially in the moon's atmosphere, there would have been a cloud of dust for hours.
Right.
And these guys land on the moon. He comes down the ladder. And steps in 3 inches of moon dust.
Right.
Impossible.
Right. Well,
it's little things like this. Even when they have a photo of the lander taking off, you don't see any dust or anything.
No,
you may see a little bit, but
right.
Come on, this is powdery moon surface here, and there should have been a cloud of dust for days.
Yeah, you see the spark or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's it. The other thing that I found interesting too. Now, maybe this is just me, but something I always found interesting is when they went to the moon. these astronauts, and again, these are very. I mean, most of these guys are fighter pilots. I mean, they're aviators. I'll go out on the limb and say they got some balls. These guys have, I mean, they put their lives on the line. But some of the crazy things that they did, flipping around, swinging around, golf clubs, all this other kind of stuff, I just kind of feel that, man, I don't know if I'd want to do something too stupid like that and know that my suit could rip or break. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or they fall down and can't get up kind of a thing,
Right. And even
if you want to see a great movie, it's been around for a very long time. I recommend it to everyone. It's about the Mercury astronauts, Chuck Yeager. It's called The Right Stuff. If you can find it, buy it. And just a tremendous movie.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the one with O.J., Capricorn 1. Where
I remember that one. Yeah, that was a good show, too.
Yeah, that was a good show. But just some of the things that they did, and even, again, I'm not a scientist, but something very simple. When this supposedly that we sent no probes to Mars, we just sent humans to Mars. How do these guys know that when they stepped off of that craft, how would they even know how the gravity was calculated? I'm sure some scientists could do that you wouldn't step off, let go, and just float into space.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. I don't know. It's I hate to say it, and but I think that the government has been milking the population, the general public, out of trillions upon trillions of dollars with all these fake projects that, how do we know that they got all these things planned for Mars? We don't know. We really don't know. And I think they're just, we're $14 trillion in debt, and they're thinking about spending trillions of dollars going to the Mars. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I guess they can write a debit and another credit. Ken, I want to thank you so much. The 2 hours went by too quick. I would love to get you back on again before the end of the year, if that's possible. Or right after.
Anytime.
Again, Ken's website, go check it out, www.worldufophotos.org and worldufophotosannews.org. It was an honor to have you here, my friend. You talked candidly. I loved it. And let's stay in touch. And my friend Bill will get some stuff to you. And, again, thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. It was an honor for being on the radio show, and I'll put you in the loop and send you some of my stuff.
And I will, too. Take care, my friend.
Okay, pal.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.